This Civic Media podcast is sponsored by UW Organ and Tissue Donation. Organ donations are desperately needed, and now is the right time to become an organ donor. Talk to your family. Get the dot. Save lives. Go to heroicdeed.com.
Broadcasting across the state of Wisconsin on the Civic Media Radio Network and around the world on the Civic Media app. This is the Dom Salvia Show. And now, here's your host, Dom Salvia.
And welcome to the Dom Salvia Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Appreciate you all. You can join, be a part of this fine production. 855-752-4842, 855-75 Civic. Jazzed as hell, Matt Rothschild, formerly of the Progressive of Wisconsin Democracy Campaign, author, Civic Media contributor, and today co-host of the Dom Salvia Show, joining me. Hey, Matt, welcome. How you doing?
I'm doing fine, Dom. It's always great to be with you.
Yeah, man, I love the Wednesdays. Hump days with Matt. Appreciate that. We also have Dr. Tim Slecker. He is the host of Busted Pencils. He's going to join us at 4:30. We're going to talk about the referendums here in the state of Wisconsin, and certainly want to get his take on what might happen at the Department of Education as the new administration eventually takes over. But in the meantime, you can join us, 855-752-4842. Big day today, Matt.
Crazy.
The former president, the former and now soon-to-be president at the White House with Joe Biden today.
It was hard to look at that scene, wasn't it? Holy smokes. And then, Biden acting all chummy. Welcome back, he said to Trump, as though this is business as usual. I know, it is protocol, though Trump didn't follow it certainly when Biden won.
Protocol since when? Not since the last guy. Do we even use that word anymore, Matt?
Well,
does it even mean anything anymore?
Not really. And to act all chummy and to kind of chortle with Trump when they both were ignoring the press's questions as though the press is the enemy of the people. I mean, it was a revolting scene, I think, for those of us who looked on at it, knowing what Trump is bringing to town, and also knowing that Biden himself is responsible largely for this disaster we've inherited, responsible for it because he didn't drop out in 2022 and open the whole thing up. And he and his family and his aides, kept everything under wraps about how he'd lost not only one step, but about 10 steps. And so here we are. It's no comfort. It's slender solace to try to say things are normal when the opposite of normal is happening right here in front of our faces.
It is certainly not normal. Let's see, CBS News reporting that he said, welcome back. Well, Mr. President-elect and former President Donald, congratulations, and looking forward to having, like we said, a smooth transition. Welcome back. Trump responds, thank you very much. And politics is tough, and it's many cases not a very nice world, but it's a nice world today. And I appreciate very much a transition that's so smooth, it'll be as smooth as it can get. But to which Biden responds, you're welcome.
Yeah, it was all, lovey-dovey. Lovey-dovey as you're handing the power over, like Hindenburg handed it over to Hitler. I'm sorry.
You think he's going to sweep the White House for bugs? You know what I mean? You're going to take off all the T's out of the keyboards for Trump before they go in there?
No.
So
this has been the problem with the problem with the Biden administration all along. It was personified by Biden today, personified also by Merrick Garland, who just sat on the pot for 2.5 years, not getting off and not indicting Trump when there was evidence right in front of all of our eyes on January 6th that this guy was responsible for treason, essentially. And if he didn't want to do it himself, he should have hired Jack Smith, on January 22nd, 2021. Instead, he waited too late, way too late. And so here we're stuck. I mean, there are few people I blame for our predicament right now. Joe Biden is one. Merrick Garland is another. Mitch McConnell is a third. Mitch McConnell, of course, could have told his Republican senators when he was majority leader, to vote to convict this guy in the second impeachment trial. Because remember, Mitch McConnell's speech that night was a speech saying that Donald Trump was behind the insurrection on January 6th. And he got out of the vote by saying, well, our judicial system can handle it. Well, look, our judicial system hasn't handled it.
Exactly. Way to bypass your responsibility and set us up for another term of Donald Trump. Lots of folks to blame. But what about the 70-plus million people that voted for him? Can we blame them too? Because this is what they wanted, and now we're going to get what they wanted. And I'm not clear that people even really know what they wanted, other than the fact they wanted something different.
I mean, this is
right? They want
a fraction of the Trump base, the cult base, which is what of that 70 million, 20%, 40%, 50%, probably a little less than 50, wanted this, and they're getting this, and they're going to rub their hands together when they see all the crazy appointments he got, including Matt Gaetz for Attorney General. That's the news flash. Sorry to bury the lead, but there's the news flash. But the other, I mean, I do have some sympathy, I guess that's too strong a word, but some sense that, the other 50, 60% of the people who voted for Trump simply felt like, they've been taking it in the pocketbook and they don't want to take it in the pocketbook anymore.
855-752-4842. Matt Rothschild joining me today. You can do so as well on the horn or on the text line. It's the same number. Folks are texting me and emailing me. This one from the New York Post, of course, as mentioned, Matt said it. Rep. Matt Gaetz is going to serve as the Attorney General. This is assuming he can get, approved by the Senate, the Republican-led Senate. It is my great honor to announce that Congressman Matt Gaetz of Florida is hereby nominated to be the Attorney General of the United States. It will be an honor to serve as President Trump's Attorney General, Matt responded on X. Yeah. What else do we say here? Matt is a deeply gifted and tenacious attorney,
very gifted.
Trained at the William and Mary College of Law, who has distinguished himself in Congress through his focus on achieving desperately needed reform at the Department of Justice. Yeah, he gave those cats a lot of work to do, didn't he?
He sure did.
Few issues in America are more important.
Wasn't it his focus on underage women? That was his focus.
Apparently, allegedly, although he was not charged with underage sex trafficking, although investigated for it. Trump said of Gaetz, few issues in America are more important than ending the partisan weaponization of our justice system. Right. Trump said of Gaetz in a statement. Now, what we're going to see here, just imagine what would happen if Matt Gaetz becomes the Attorney General. You think that's going to end, quote unquote, weaponization of the justice system, the partisan weaponization? I mean, that is the point of Matt Gaetz becoming the Attorney General, to engage in partisan weaponization of the justice system. Now, Donald Trump was charged mainly because he's been apparently had evidence of criming going on. Not because he was Donald Trump, but because he was criming. Matt, does that seem like partisan weaponization?
Well, we're going to see real partisan weaponization here as they go after Nancy Pelosi, Adam Schiff. Maybe they'll go after Joy Reid. Who knows? They're going to go after those folks on the enemies list, as Kamala Harris put it so appropriately. And Matt Gaetz is a, fire breather. I mean, he's just going to go after everyone he can.
Matt Gaetz is a mouth breather. That's what Matt Gaetz is. A little bit more from the truth statement here. Matt will end weaponized government, protect our borders, dismantle criminal organizations, and restore Americans' badly shattered faith and confidence in the Justice Department. On the House Judiciary Committee, which performs oversight of DOJ, Matt played a key role in defeating the Russia hoax and exposing alarming and systemic government corruption and weaponization. He is a champion for the Constitution and the rule of law. The truthy statement from Trump said.
We are in 1984 right now. We really are. Or Animal Farm. Pick your Orwell. We're living in it right now.
Advice and consent of the Senate. Now, I mean, there's going to be, and we have a list, and we'll get to some of the other proposed cabinet members, but this one is seeming, I think, one of the most striking. There's a couple that might, rise to that level. But Matt Gaetz, I mean, has there ever been someone who's led the Department of Justice after being investigated by the Department of Justice? I mean, is that a thing? And what would happen to the folks that were investigating him based on, again, the evidence? And they declined to charge. But those investigations, those prosecutions, they're evidence based. Grand juries are impaneled, and people look at evidence, and then they decide whether or not to charge. I mean, that's how the process normally works. I am curious to know how Gaetz would handle being at the helm of the Justice Department.
Well, he's gonna do his bidding and Trump's bidding, and the bidding is to retaliate, to go after anybody. And it's not really retaliation. Trump was committing a crime in front of our eyes and God's eyes on January 6th. If you're a believer, I mean, come on, and to say nothing of the other cases against him, and all that's going to go away. They talked about prosecuting Jack Smith. They'll probably go after him. They'll probably go after Milley, either in a court martial or some other way. So we're going to see partisan ship at the Justice Department, times 10.
855-752-4842. Matt Rothschild joining me as the co-host for today. And once again, Dr. Tim Slucker going to join us at the bottom of the hour. We have some innovators. People want to jump in and voice their opinion. So let's get to it. Oh, man, what's going on? I lost my mouse. All right. Hey, Aaron, if you pull up Jim from Richland Center for me, please.
All right, Jim.
Hey, Jim.
Yeah, good afternoon. I heard a little bit of it in the previous comments, all the finger pointing. I'm getting a little upset at that. Yeah, Biden should have acted more quickly. The Attorney General should have acted more quickly. That's all true. But I want to place blame on where it should be, and that's all the people who did not vote, the people who sat on their hands, because there's probably over 12 million people less that voted in this election than 4 years ago. And the fact is that every year 4 million people turn 18, so that times 4 years is 16 million. Of course, there's a number of people who passed away, but overall, the number of eligible aged people that could have voted in this election increased by about 7 million people. And yet there was less people that actually went to the polls or voted early.
Thanks for the call, Jim. Sure, there's always the folks that stay home, and perhaps there were some folks that were scared. There were bomb threats, called into some of the African-American ballot places, so polling places. So that's certainly concerning as well. But listen, I mean, people have their rights, and people stay home for whatever reason it may be. And they certainly, if not engaged in self-governance, carry some of the responsibility, perhaps. Well, those that voted for him, they carry the most responsibility because they're going to be a part of what's coming down. Matt Gaetz as Attorney General, oh my God. Join us, 855-752-4842.
You're listening to Civic Media. You can tune into any of our live shows on any radio station across the state with the Civic Media app. Find us in your phone's app store and listen anytime, anywhere.
The Dom Salvia Show, 855-752-4842. Matt Rothschild joining me today. Aaron on the board, you on the phones, 855-75-CIVIC. Let's get back to a couple of the phone calls in just a moment. Matt, I want you to, an opportunity for you to express some of your thoughts about some of these cabinet members. My shock of the day, Matt Gaetz for Attorney General. What jumped out at you? I know there's a lot of them. We'll get to them throughout the day, but what's the first one that jumps out to you, Matt?
Well, Matt Gaetz is a real eyebrow raiser. That's for sure.
It's tough to beat. Sure.
It is.
Yeah.
But there are a couple others that may be equally as dangerous. Hegseth over at the Department of Defense. This guy is a real creep. He had come to the defense of a soldier who was accused of really heinous war crimes, including taking out. He didn't do it, but this other guy in the service, Gallagher, taking out a knife and stabbing a 17-year-old in the throat and bragging about it online. And his buddies, one of his fellow soldiers, said he thought this guy was evil.
Wow.
Gallagher was evil, and Pete Hegseth, came to this guy's defense, was a big apologist for him, and got Trump to go easy on him. And that's a kind of a sadistic streak that's, or at least someone who's in love with someone else being a sadist. I don't want it as head of the Department of Defense. So that is really troubling. Plus, he's going to be running, Hegseth's going to be running the Pentagon, which has almost 3 million people, and he's never run, a small business in his life.
But he's on Fox News, Matt. He can do anything.
Fox and Friends, that's the qualification. Running the New Year's Eve party broadcast from Fox and Friends gets you to run the Pentagon. I mean, he did serve in the Pentagon. I mean, he did serve in the military, don't get me wrong. That's to his credit, but that doesn't make him qualified to run the whole show.
Right, dude. Just because you serve doesn't make you qualified to run. I mean, that's the Pentagon. It's the biggest employer, right? 3 million people. That's a lot. Good luck getting your hands around that. But again, the point is loyalty. If Donald Trump values anything, it is loyalty. And Matt Gaetz, Pete Hegseth, these cats will absolutely be loyal to Donald Trump. And I would submit, and time will tell, loyal to a fault. 855-752-4842. A couple callers before. Dr. Tim Slecker joins us at the bottom of the hour. He's from Busted Pencils. We're going to talk education and referendums. But in the meantime, let's clean up the board. Andrew from Motown. Welcome, Andrew. What do you got for us?
Hey, Dom. Hey, guys. As a former Michigander, I just wanted to let you know we had horrible news today in the city of Detroit. Mike Duggan will not run for mayor of Detroit again.
Oh, no.
The legacy of Mike Duggan here, when Detroit went into bankruptcy, he was the one that became mayor and dug us out of it. And you've recently been to Detroit. You know what Detroit looks like now, and that is due to Mike Duggan. My neighborhood alone, the number of vacant houses, he's tearing them down like crazy. It is wonderful what he has done for us. He hasn't said yet what he's going to do. I hope he stays in politics. I hope he climbs the ladder either into our Congress or our next governor, as Gretchen Whitmer can no longer run.
All right. Great points, Andrew. Appreciate the update from Motown. Whitmer. Wonder what's going to happen with her as well. Thank you for listening. Thank you for the call. Jack from the Mac, you're up. Welcome, sir. What do you got for us? Hello, Jack. Hello, you're on, Jack. Welcome.
I'm sorry. Yeah. I've got a bit of a rant. I hope we have time for it.
I give you like 2 minutes, man.
Okay, I'll make it as fast as I can. I'm very disgusted with those who voted for a convicted felon and adjudicated rapist, but especially those who were made afraid of transsexuals by such things as lying hubby ads. Most of these people don't even know who's a transsexual. Or by openly xenophobic, racist, open borders propaganda, which is a lie in itself. Most of these people don't even know anybody who's undocumented. Or by the Democrats are responsible for inflation, when repeated sources have shown inflation is mostly corporate price gouging. And let's not even get into the ridiculous conspiracy. Democrats are advocating a new world order to turn the world into a socialist authoritarian system. Democrats can't even organize their own caucus most of the time. These people voted for an insurrectionist who's advocated suspending our Constitution, a would-be dictator who should be incarcerated if any of our law enforcement officials had any political courage. And a regime they voted for looks like it's intent on destroying America's limited democracy. Let's not even discuss the obvious misogyny and racism demonstrated by those who chose to vote for this sexual abuser and a felon, and who nearly destroyed America in his first 4 years instead of a supremely qualified, talented, black female candidate is.
You know, Jack, thank you for that. But when you put it like that, it sounds really bad. 855-752-4842. Mark, you will have the last word this segment. Welcome. What do you got for us?
Yeah, it's a young Frankenstein normal. It's Abby normal that is what we're facing right now. And it is just the reprehensibility of these people. I mean, that Matt Gaetz and the guy for defense, I mean, the guy doesn't wash his hands. How the hell did his mother bring him up if he doesn't wash his hands? He bragged about that. I mean, it is just on a these people and a serial adulterer. I mean, what is that a qualification for Trump's picks?
I mean, Mark, I think he's going to pick them to stick it to you, to me, to you, Matt, and to perhaps to test the loyalty of those in the Senate. Last 60 seconds of this segment. Matt, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, Trump is delivering basically what he promised. I mean, listen, he said he was going to come through and deliver on his promises. We knew what his coterie was like. We knew who the sycophants were around him, and he's appointing those sycophants because they kissed his behind. And that's who gets rewarded, and that's what we're going to have to deal with here.
Folks, this is the Dom Salvia Show. Matt Rothschild sticking around with me all day today. You can as well. But coming up next, Dr. Tim Slecker, host of Busted Pencils, going to get into the Wisconsin education referendums and what might happen on the national level to the Department of Education. Stick around.
I don't think I've washed my hands for 10 years. Really, I don't really wash my hands ever.
Help me.
No, I inoculate myself. It's just not, germs are not a real thing. I can't see them, therefore they're not real.
So you're becoming immune to all of the
exactly,
bacteria.
I can't get sick.
Genius.
You're an organ donor, right? Well, here's a tragic fact. Approximately 20 people die each day waiting for precious donated organs. You could make a life-saving decision simply by getting that important dot on your driver's license. That little dot shows those who need to know that you've made a decision to donate organs at a critical time. Go to heroicdeed.com to learn more about the importance of organ donation and how you can make your wishes known. Talk to your family. Get the dot. Save lives. heroicdeed.com.
Dancing on the crumbling precipice, the rocks are coming loose just at the end. Are we laughing? Are we crying? Are we drowning? Are we dead? Or is it all a dream?
And welcome back to the Dom Salvia Show. 855-752-4842, 855-75-CIVIC. Matt Rothschild joining me today, co-hosting, and jazzed as hell to introduce our friend, Dr. Tim Slecker, host of Busted Pencils, fully leaded education talk. Find that on the Civic Media US podcast or on the Civic Media app. Go check it out. Tim, welcome back, man. How you doing?
Wow. I don't know, man. That's a hard question.
I know,
just like,
dude.
you're talking about education too. I mean, oh man, if anybody has watched the 2.5 minute clips of the 10 points for K-12 and then the future of higher education under this current administration, it's frightening. I mean, there's got to be some bit of a humor in it somewhere, but right now I'm not finding it, man.
Well, it's gallows humor, man.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's just,
that's what it is.
I mean, it truly is. This is the attack, and this is what Johnny and I've been saying, since the show has been on Civic Media and public education, and understand the attack that he's putting forward here is an attack on the foundation of democracy. Understand and recognize this. This has nothing to do with failing schools or grooming or anything about that. This is fully a recognition that if they can gut, destroy, cripple public schooling, this actually is a crippling of democracy. Because I'm sorry, as young as kindergarten is what we're doing in public schools, is preparing you for critical citizenry, to understand conversations, how to have conversations about what's fair, back and forth. This is the crucible of democracy, our schooling system in this country. And what you're hearing here, the attack on K-12 and what's coming for higher education, yeah, this is an attack on our democracy full-throated. The idea that you are going to literally mandate a loyalty test that teachers are going to have to do that. Matt, I see you looking at me this kind of like, oh my God.
Well, it is part and parcel of the general attack on democracy that they are doing on all fronts, Tim.
Yeah.
And you and Johnny have been blowing the whistle on this, week after week, night after night. And yet here we are, and they've taken over every lever of power. And so we are here facing really the full fledged assault on our democracy at every level on every issue.
I don't know if you guys have been taking pop shots at the Democrats, but this is one they own hardcore because Democrats have, for the longest time, been part of the attack of public education because, again, they've been on the failing schools narrative, the get rid of teachers narrative. They never, ever wanted to embrace public education as a pillar of democracy and why they're behind it. It has always been the failing schools narrative. Well, guess what now? They're coming after truly the foundation of democracy. I don't know, can there be a force to push back on them at this point? I hope so, because I'll bring it back down to this one, though. Guess what? My neighbor still loves going to Friday night football. When they find out that could be potentially cut away from their community, this might be the kind of movement that we get back. And guess what? Vouchers voted for in every ballot initiative across for this election failed miserably. In Kentucky, where it was almost a clean sweep for Trump and Republicans, vouchers got beat by 65% of the voting population.
Wow.
There's the connection to public education. Guess what? Your neighbor, my neighbor, likes their public schools. If you put public schools on the ballot, people vote for the public schools, not against their public schools.
But it is the disconnect, though, between voting with the Democrats on issues or voting with progressives on the issues like abortion or public schools, and then voting for this guy that we got.
Ah, I know.
Folks, this is the Dom Salvia Show. That's my co-host for the day, Matt Rothschild, and our guest for the segment, Dr. Tim Slecker, co-host of the Busted Pencils, fully leaded education talk. Tim, the last Trump administration brought us Betsy DeVos as Department of Education head. We got through that, right? What was your assessment of that, and what do you think, what's the worst that could happen with someone different besides DeVos in there?
What's the worst that could happen, really? You mean the wife of a billionaire with no education qualifications heading the Department of Education? I guess we don't need to worry about this one this time because he's going to actually get rid of it right away, first thing. So we're not going to have... I don't believe this. Actually, I think it can get incredibly worse. If you guys are watching the head of education in Oklahoma, and I'm drawing a blank on his name right now, but this guy is absolutely been auditioning to be the Secretary of Education under Trump. Because guess what? They are not going to do away with the Department of Education right away. And the other part of that, the reality is, if he wants to have such a strong federal hand in mandating compliance, you're going to need the federal Department of Education for that. But this is who I say right now, people are like, Matt Gaetz really for Attorney General? Yeah. I can tell you that the superintendent in Oklahoma, I would not be surprised to see him nominated. I don't know if any of you guys are doing. I'm just drawing a blank.
Ryan Walters.
Ryan Walters. I mean, he's mandated prayer. He's mandated Bibles in the schools of Oklahoma. He is the one who actually tried to put forward a voucher-funded private religious school and putting that forward. This guy has been auditioning to become the Department of Education secretary under Trump,
and Trump.
That's worse than Betsy DeVos because this guy actually believes in the crap he's doing.
And Trump has talked about the need for patriotic education in the schools, and that's going to come down.
Yeah, and Walters, take a look at him. He has been literally trying to do everything in Oklahoma that Trump has been talking about. And so Dom, yeah, you know what? It was it was funny when Betsy DeVos was the head because there was so much to make fun of her, her unqualifications. I used to have a buddy, a fraternity brother who would come on Busted Pencils at the time, Fast Eddie, we called him. And he came in, and he made fun of Betsy DeVos. It was fun to make fun of Betsy DeVos. This is nothing to make fun of this time. You get Ryan Walters as the Secretary of Education for the Department of Education while it's still alive. Man, this is a disaster. So I said, I love coming on. I love having fun, and I love making jokes. But on this one, I'm having a tough time kind of finding the humor, because the reality of what they stand for and what they're going to do is that, the 4 years under Betsy DeVos, we're going to wish we get those back.
Here's one quote from him. We want to make sure that every student knows the role that the Bible played in American history.
And we all know that there's no role that the Bible... But again, this is their worldview in recognizing this,
well,
right?
I can recognize that religion, as a general sense, certainly has influence on humanity. The atheist here, I find that very problematic, and not just Christianity, but name them all: the ones that have come and gone, the ones that are still here, and the ones yet to come. So, as a matter of history, in conjunction with all the other religions and the terrible things that have occurred because of that, I'm not necessarily opposed to that, but sticking the 10 Commandments on the wall is problematic for me. Now, this went down in Louisiana. Reuters, the judge stopped that. And the judge said this, because they wanted, in Louisiana, put the 10 Commandments up on the walls in all the schools. That went to court. Here's what the judge said. Each of the plaintiff's minor children will be forced, in every practical sense, through Louisiana's required attendance policy, to be a captive audience. Mm-hmm. So the issue is whether, as a matter of law, there's any constitutional way to display the 10 Commandments in accordance with Louisiana's law. In short, the court finds that there is not. So they're trying. They've always tried. There used to be prayer in school. They used to do these things, and it was pulled back, right, which I would consider progress. But there's always this constant pressure to, go back to the old days, because that's what's wrong with the world. No prayer in the public classrooms. But the courts have ruled against that, at least in this case. Is that at least somewhat solace for you, Tim?
I mean, we have to take them where we can get them, the victories like that, But again, even the court system right now, when we start to look at this, where, at one point, is there going to be a judge or a court system that will say, no, you know what? We see this because at the same time, remember, the Supreme Court actually allowed for the prayer on the field with the football teams. And so recognizing that, what one judge does in Louisiana, we've got a Supreme Court here that will probably say, I bet you that they'll find something wrong with what this judge just did in Louisiana. And Dom, I'll be the same with you too. I would love, in fact, being an old social studies teacher like Johnny and I would love to teach hardcore religion in my social studies classes about the religions of the world, and recognize that would be incredibly valuable learning. But if I put full force in behind that, understand that would be attacked, because we don't want you to learn about religions. We want you indoctrinated in our religion, and just realizing that that's where they're going to be coming from with Ryan Walters and where they've always done. Because I would actually love to mandate fully, truly, an inclusive education in the history of religion for all students graduating, because it surely is one of the things that we could do a lot better at understanding, because as you point out, Dom, the real history, guess what? Religion and religiosity and religious beliefs have been largely influential in creating the histories that we live in now.
Well, I think we're living in the history right now, Tim. I think the religious influence on this most recent election is woefully understated and underreported. Some of these folks think Donald Trump was sent by God. Yeah. He survived assassination by God, and by God, and there's no policy argument that I could make, Tim, be it education or anything else, that is going to convince someone of faith to not vote for the person they believe their God sent down to earth to serve them. That's just never going to happen. Tim Slecker, Matt Rothschild, just a couple more minutes in the segment. Tim, 3 more minutes. The election here in Wisconsin, lots of education referendums. Yeah. Many of them, hundreds of them, 108 out of 139. Matt, I think you said like 78% of them passed billions of dollars. What's your take on how this is shaping up in the states these days?
Different ways to look at this. First, though, is it's a victory again too. Guess what? People, when given the opportunity to vote in favor of their local public schools, will even tax themselves more to provide what it is that their children require. We should not need those referendums when we realize the billions of dollars that are in the rainy day fund in Wisconsin. But the fact is that people believe in their public schools. And so 70+%, was it 75, 78% referendums passing? And those are taxpayers saying, yes, tax us even more, because the state legislators in the state of Wisconsin refused to do their constitutional duty, which is providing a fully funded, thriving public education system. So guess what? I guess we're going to have to pay a little bit more. The fact that so many people are willing to do that is to realize how much support there is for public education truly when it comes to the electorate and the people making those votes. Again, so really laying into that. So, looking for, there's a lot going on here. Hopefully we can talk more about the higher education thing too. And yeah, the podcasts are dropping Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And then the other part is now too, you can, Busted Pencils, not sure if you know this, Dom and Matt, but every Saturday at 3:00 too is the 1 hour Busted Pencils too. So you got Monday, Wednesday, Friday, the podcast drop, and then Saturdays at 3:00, Busted Pencils for a full hour every Saturday too. So, and then we're also on every morning. In fact, tomorrow morning I'll be on with John and Gordy for that, because the attack on public education, we haven't even talked really about higher education, but the reality of going after the accreditation system, man, we need to talk about what that really means, because I've had my problems with accreditors working in higher education for the past 25 years, but one of the problems I've never had is with accreditation. I've had my problem with accreditors, but I've never had a problem with accreditation. So if you can understand what that means.
Oh, what's the worst that could happen? I mean, Donald Trump, he had a Trump University, man. He knows all about higher education. Dr. Tim Slacker, co-host of Busted Pencils, fully leaded education talk. Find him broadcasting here on the Civic Media Network on Saturdays. Of course, the podcast you can find on the website and on the app. Tim, thank you so much, man. We'll talk real soon. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Folks, this is the Dom Salvia Show. We're going to come back with your calls, 855-752-4842. Stick around.
You're listening to Civic Media. Find the latest news, information, and archives of all your favorite shows on the Civic Media website, civicmedia.us.
And welcome back to the Dom Salvia Show, 855-752-4842, 855-75-CIVIC. It's a phone line. It's a text line. We'll get to you next. I want to thank our most recent guest, Dr. Timothy Slacker from the Busted Pencils. Find them on the Civic Media Network on broadcasting on Saturdays. Always appreciate Tim's perspective and musical choices, man. I love the Rise Against fan. Matt, any thoughts on further thoughts on the education and what might happen under a Trump administration?
Well, this idea about indoctrinating people about the role of Christianity in U.S. history, basically force-feeding people Christianity, force-feeding people patriotic education, as Trump put it. I mean, you won't be able to have your kid or grandkid in high school ever, maybe college too, if it's a public college, ever to be able to read Howard Zinn's A People's History of the United States. I mean, you're not going to get, any sense of, a balanced view of what our history was. It's just going to be, all greatness. We're an exception. We're the most exceptional country, and read about all the founding fathers and how great they were, not talk about slavery. It's just going to be a complete whitewash.
And don't forget about the most recent president, your favorite president, Donald Trump. I'm sure he will feature prominently in the new pro-Christian, pro-patriotic education movement in this country.
He may get his Bibles in those K through 12 schools, too.
I mean, he's been laying down the seed corn for a long time because at the end of the day, it's all about the grift, man. 855-752-4842. At the end of the day, it's all about you, our fair audience. Let's get to him. David from Mequon, you are next. Welcome, David. What do you got for us?
Good evening, gentlemen. Really quickly, in regards with the referendums, the shame of it all is the fact that even in Mequon, we had a referendum, which of course passed. But the thing is, a lot of it's not going towards the teachers. It's going towards basically administrators that don't do anything with teaching. It goes to, obviously, improvements with the actual physical buildings. But at the end of the day, very little of this is actually going towards the teachers because, with these building projects, the cost of them with the schools, it's immense. And, the contractors are doing well. They're very happy with it. But it does very little for the kids because they just dropped the standard for kids in the state of Wisconsin, lowered the threshold for being able to do math and reading and everything else. And that's a huge problem. And I hope that people recognize that going forward.
David, do you think the way that we are funding our education, K through 12 specifically here in the state of Wisconsin, is effective and efficient? And how did you vote on your local referendum? I voted no this time. I voted yes the last time, the previous time, just 3 years ago. Because, there was at least an idea with this. This referendum was just basically more of a maintenance rider. And I'm like, didn't you guys spend that money when we made the upgrades? It's a little silly. And I do think the state does have to refigure out, especially the reallocation of dollars, because it's definitely... There's some districts that are definitely getting more than others, and it's not balanced as good as it should be. All right, David, appreciate you listening. Appreciate your calls. 855-752-4842. Jake from Milwaukee. Hey, Jake, welcome. What do you got for us?
Hey, Dom. Please tell me if I'm off base here, and maybe this is just an overly simplistic view of it, but if you look at the percentage of voters without a college degree voting for Trump, I think it was something close to 80%, if not a little over. I mean, of course, this guy and this administration is going to want to devalue, dismantle the bedrock of our education and Department of Education just to keep us dumb and keep us voting for them.
I mean, I think one of our streamers on Facebook said Trump wants subjects, not citizens. It's hard to think that that's the case, Jake, that there be a purposeful effort to dumb down the citizens. But, I think it's at some point it's ultimately up to us. And thanks for the call, Jake. Matt, we provide education, in my humble opinion, to, give a baseline, to give people a chance to succeed in this world. And even public education, you can only do so much. Hell, even private education. At some point, those kids become adults, and those adults are responsible for their own continuing education, for their own, to manage their own curiosity. And if you have none, and you think you got it all figured out when you're 17 years old, I mean, good luck with that. Matt, your thoughts?
Yeah, I just wanted to correct the stat. It wasn't like 80% of voters without college degrees went to Trump. According to an article I'm looking at, it was 54% backed Trump, while 44% chose Harris. It's still, a discrepancy, a gap, but not quite as yawning. But I think you're absolutely...
Not 80-20, right?
No, there was nothing at 80-20, except for black folks voting for Kamala Harris. That happened. And the turnout among blacks in Milwaukee was higher than last time too, so that was a good thing. But yeah, I mean, people are responsible for their own choices. A majority of Americans who voted for Trump, and we're looking at Trump unvarnished right now. He's coming down with all his cronies going to his cabinet, and we'll see what a mess he makes, and we're going to have to protest that mess every step of the way.
Matt Rothschild joining me today as a co-host. You can join us as well, 855-752-4842. The cabinet, at least the the ones that they're putting forth, it's starting to form up. We're going to go through the list. It's not just Matt Gaetz, Florida congressman for attorney general. Oh, but wait, there's more. We'll go through the list on the other side, plus your calls, 855-752-4842.
The national news cycle never stops, but it can be hard to find news about your local community. Civic Media is dedicated to providing quality local and state news coverage across Wisconsin. With the Civic Media app, you can get notifications about local stories that matter to you and your community. Find the free Civic Media app in your phone's app store and choose notifications from the menu to tell us what kind of news you want to hear about.